You have very different needs as learners doing this course. So if you're using this module as a standalone because you're currently a trainer and assessor in the vet sector, you just simply need to scroll down to the end of this question now. I currently work for an RTO delivering training and assessment for nationally recognised qualification outcomes. I evaluate myself by, and this is the section where you would complete the short answer response explaining the processes and procedures, the forms that you use in your RTO, and please also just insert some of those as well. So the way that you would do that is you would go to Insert up the top, Object, and then scroll through Create File, Browse, then scroll through wherever you keep some of your moderation reports or validation reports. And let me just, out of interest, just double click on that one, display it as an icon, and that will insert into your document. Okay, so I need your written explanation and then you inserting your evidence. So if you can go ahead and do that, I would also then be talking about how those ASA learner surveys are sent through, and your RTO would be giving you feedback on their results. Any learner surveys, any informal processes that you're conducting throughout your training and assessment, just please give me the full scope of how you evaluate and modify. That would be fantastic. Then you can stop the YouTube video here and get on with it. And I'd like to address the other learners now who, you know, training and assessing in the vet sector is new to them. So just moving on now with you guys. We have another question here that you would have to answer. I am new to training and assessing in the vet sector, and I intend to evaluate my training and assessing by, and my advice to you guys is you've been no doubt doing the other modules to work towards your qualification, and I have in here the lesson plan that you would have been working with in Module 2. On the second page is a self-reflection. So you can modify these documents to your needs, but I would always, especially when you're starting out as a trainer and assessor, doing a self-reflection and having that as a formal record. And when you make yourself go through that process, it helps prompt some recommendations or requests to your training organisation or your workplace for any additional resources you might need, or additional time, or how you might need to adjust it for next time. Perhaps too, this is where you would need to get in touch with the supervisors and have a quiet chat about some of the learners' attitudes. You know, unfortunately in the workplace, training and assessment is thrust upon them, and if you've got very informal workplaces, you know, there's not a lot of consultation that goes on with their workers. So, you know, workers enter your training, you know, forced to have to do the training. So, you know, there might need to be a little bit of behaviour management and attitude adjustment going on. And, you know, we certainly talk about that in Module 2 to a far greater degree. So yeah, there's your self-reflection, but this question is really about you evaluating your training, which would then come in the lesson plan, and evaluating your assessment, which you would need to refer again to your prompt sheet, so your principles of assessment, rules of evidence. So some of you would be trainers and assessors in the workplace where there's no nationally recognised qualification as the outcome. You're just simply wanting to do training in your individual workplace for, you know, for no statement of attainment or Certificate 4 or Certificate 1 qualification at the end. So you're not working for a registered training organisation necessarily. You're just wanting your own qualification to get in there and build some skills and enhance your current training. So you wouldn't then be using formalised validation reports necessarily, but you can still answer this question in the sense that you know, you're doing informal checking for understanding, and you're considering if those check for understanding questions are valid. So are they checking for understanding that the outcomes are going to be met? You know, the objectives at the beginning that you're stating it, by the end of this training session, you will know how to do X, Y, Z, and you will understand A, B, C. So in your check for understanding questions throughout the course, in a more formative assessment, rather than a formalised evidence gathering for a, you know, for qualification at the end, have you made sure that your checking for understanding is valid that way? Also, that there was sufficient checking for understanding. You know, that your candidates, your learners, have actually been able to consistently prove that they can perform the skills. So, you know, if it's something in the workplace where it's a procedure, you'd want to be making sure that you've been giving them adequate opportunities to perform that task and in a repeated way, not just once, you know, certainly 24, 48 hours later, to make sure that they can remember all of the steps there. So your response may be, I will apply the lesson plan's self-reflection and consider the rules of evidence when I check for understanding. Yeah, something like that's fine.